Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome to your weekly Nintendo News Roundup live, reaching every Friday night. The All-In crew breaks down the week in Nintendo news. Eric, you're very like Princess Diana coded a little bit, doing the whole like wave and everything.
Well, I
Good.
found myself in a regal mood after I wound up back in the Mushroom Kingdom this week. More on that a little bit later. But feels good, man. Friday, spending time with my best bud. We're going to talk some Nintendo. It's been a weird and interesting and awesome week, and we're going to get into it.
Yeah.
However, hi to everybody showing up in the chat. Hey, Sparky, how you doing, brother? What's going on? Nice,
Good to see
lively,
Sparky.
nice,
Yeah.
lively crowd already. And speaking of
Star Athena.
Sparky. There is something that we do at the beginning of every episode of All In and at the beginning of every news roundup. That's an incredibly important part of the All In ritual here. And that is, of course, shouting out the amazing patrons that help us keep the lights on here at the All In HQ. Isn't that right, my friend?
That's right. We start off our show by thanking our patrons, patreon.com/allinpodcast. Let's do that right now. Starting with our Golden Banana Bunch. Thank you to Rob Yapel, Sean O'Baggins, Ashton, Tim A, aka NeoPrime33, aka Nintendo Dad number 4, Phelan Ward, Bill Tucker, Marcus O'Neill, Liam D, Gamer Jason, Andrew Wilkins, Alan Look to the Cookie, Solo, SAZ, and blah blah blah. Big thanks to our Golden Banana Bunch. You can get a 7-day free trial to that tier, join their ranks, and get exclusive content, see what all the fuss is about. Moving into our Triforce tier,
Da-na-na-na.
thank you to Josh Vaughn, the godfather of Tingle Love Tuesday, John Datfast Cummins of the Retro Logic podcast, as well as the On Topic Retro podcast, the Globetrotting Jet Set Nintendo Hub, and Sparky, who, as you mentioned, is in the chat, playing some Before the Green Moon. You love to see it.
You do love to see it.
Adam Caparello of the Retro Groove podcast, Shy Guy, the other half of our Shy Guy mod squad, Danielina Hosa, Dan and Luma, Bowza, the Keeper of the Hugs, the Don Rob, Foolish Fuji, the Koala from Down Under, and the Legend himself.
That's actually the regal royalty that I was princess waving to a few seconds ago. Uncle Randy.
Uncle Randy, that's right. The
Duke
King
Uncle Randy? Prince
Archduke, Archduke Uncle Randy. Yes, that's right. Yeah. Huge thanks to everybody who supports us on Patreon. Again, 7-day free trial to the Golden Banana tier. There's exclusive content that goes up there each and every week. You get things like discounts on our merch, which we have a brand new refreshed website and merch store. Eric's wearing the All-In polo there. That's one of the many things that you can grab over there at allin.media. If you're watching us on YouTube right now, you can find links to that below. And if you're listening on your podcast feed, you can find that in the video description or the podcast description. So, speaking of that, if you listen to us on your audio feed, your 5-star reviews are very helpful. It really helps us climb the ranks and drop that 5-star rating on your podcatcher of choice. And if you watch on YouTube, like, subscribe, leave comments, all that stuff helps the algorithm and helps us out. We appreciate you for doing that. But with all of that out of the way, Eric, we have got quite a bit actually of news to get into tonight.
Yeah, we do. Quite a few things to talk about. And just really quickly, it is coming toward the end of spring, right? We're going into summer, like warm weather, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's weird that you see so much Shiver at Nintendo this past week.
Oh. Well done.
That was
well
a god-awful pun, and I apologize to everybody for that. If you laughed at that, you should feel bad about yourself.
How long were you thinking of that? How long you been sitting on that?
Genuinely just right now.
Okay. that felt like a
That was so
grenade.
dumb. That was so dumb. If I had thought about that for more than a second.
It felt like a cooked grenade. I was like, oh, he's waiting to drop that bad boy.
Yes, as we're pitifully trying to segue into the first news story of this week, Nintendo did, of course, acquire very prolific video game port studio Shiver from Embracer this past week. Shiver, rather, as you might know, or as I've probably told you, is the studio behind the Mortal Kombat 11, Mortal Kombat 1 ports of the Nintendo Switch ports of Mortal Kombat 1 and Mortal Kombat 11. Excuse me, among many others.
Yeah. Yeah, they're a pretty prolific port studio in particular. And as a matter of fact, I've got the document here, the press release, the notice of the acquisition of Shiver Entertainment Inc. I'm not going to read this whole thing. It's a bunch of mumbo jumbo that y'all don't care about. But
Bunch of legalese, yeah.
yeah, a bunch of legalese, but yes, Nintendo hereby announces that it has entered into an agreement with Embracer Group AB to acquire 100% of the outstanding shares of Shiver Entertainment Inc. and make it a wholly owned subsidiary. The purpose of acquisition: Shiver is a video game development company that develops software for multiple platforms, including Nintendo Switch. Since its establishment in 2012, Shiver has partnered with publishers and developers through commissions for large-scale title developments, and recently has worked on porting and developing software titles such as Hogwarts Legacy and Mortal Kombat 1. Nintendo will acquire 100% of the outstanding shares of Shiver and make it a wholly owned subsidiary. By welcoming Shiver's experienced and accomplished development team, Nintendo aims to secure high-level resources for porting and developing software titles. Going forward, even after it becomes a part of the Nintendo Group, Shiver's focus will remain the same, continuing commissions that port and develop software for multiple platforms, including Nintendo Switch. So, yeah, this is a big deal for a couple of reasons.
Yes.
First of all, Nintendo does not acquire studios often. The last one that they acquired, I think, was Next Level Games at this point 2.5, 3 years ago.
A while ago, yeah. We wondered if Nintendo was going to really jump into this acquisition race that began in earnest a while ago and has in large part probably contributed to many of the layoffs the industry is suffering now. But Nintendo really didn't. Yeah, again, Next Level Games, I think the last big notable studio acquisition from the big. And so a lot of people may be scratching their heads a little bit when they see that Shiver was the one that they finally decided to put a ring on. But if you think about it for a couple seconds, this actually makes perfect sense, because we know that a new piece of hardware is forthcoming for the Big N. And I don't know if the negative reception to the Mortal Kombat 1 Switch port influenced this in any way, but regardless, you have a studio whose entire expertise at this point is porting games to your platform. And with Nintendo entering into a new hardware generation next year, it makes perfect sense that one of the most prolific studios out there switching up games to make them run on Nintendo consoles, it makes sense that Nintendo would want to bring them into the fold so that they can give them the resources they need to do that effectively. They can give them access to the actual hardware so that they can start getting ports of all of these games that have for the past few years only been coming out really on Microsoft and Sony's consoles. This, I think, is going to be a big focus for Nintendo going into their next generation of hardware, is really starting to get a lot of those games that for the past several years they knew were just kind of out of their hardware reach, and bringing in a company who can help translate those games over to their platform makes perfect sense. When you say it's like, okay, we're bringing you guys in, we're going to show you the hardware so that you guys are as familiar with it as you possibly can be. We're going to, work with you with internal resources so you guys have the best possible team and the best possible opportunity to make the best versions, the best Nintendo versions of these games possible. Now, they did say that they are going to continue to develop for other platforms as well. However, just for the simple fact of Nintendo not wanting the Nintendo port of new games to be considered objectively the worst coming out the gate, and having a studio essentially dedicated to turning that entire stigma around, I think this makes perfect sense for Nintendo.
I think it makes a lot of sense too. I honestly though, that language I think doesn't really mean much, because they could very easily still like multiple platforms, including Nintendo Switch, just means Nintendo Switch plus one other platform. It could mean Nintendo Switch plus Nintendo Switch 2. Like that statement could literally just mean that.
Very possibly.
If they own 100% of this thing and if they've officially acquired it, I think they're probably just going to make them an exclusive, studio. Like, hey, y'all are doing this for us now. I don't know that, but that would be my assumption. My other assumption is, as Embracer has sort of continued to do their sort of like, hey, we're idiots and we need to offload a lot of stuff, they probably got them for cheap. They probably got them for pretty cheap. And so Nintendo doesn't acquire studios often, and they much, much, much prefer to work with people on a second party basis. And Nintendo will not move in on an actual acquisition of a studio unless they feel like they have to. There are major, major studios that Nintendo has long-standing partnerships with, like HAL. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that the people who make like the Kirby franchise are not owned by Nintendo. You know, they much prefer to work with people on a second party basis and kind of get to, you know, pick and choose and have right of first refusal and all of this stuff with those people. So I have to imagine that Nintendo, it's a good strategic move, but I think they also are like, if we, you know, if Embracer's selling, then yeah, sure, I guess we'll buy. And yeah, it does make a lot of sense because I know that people sort of the big punching bag with this is Mortal Kombat 1, which had a horrible Switch port. But, you know, there's all indications that that port was also rushed. You know, that port came out day and date with the other versions of the game, and it clearly didn't have enough time in the oven. The difference between that and something like Hogwarts Legacy, which they also did, is Hogwarts Legacy was delayed like close to a year. And you know, didn't even see release until like last November on Nintendo Switch. And by all accounts, that version of the game is good on Switch. It's like apparently a good port. I mean, these are, you know, the TLDR is these are talented people, and now they will have Nintendo's resources to make high quality ports on Switch too. And it'll be great for them.
I would like to think. Hey, Fulia, how you doing? I would like to think that one of the first things that Nintendo leadership said to Shiver is, you're not going to have to deal with whatever foolishness WB was shoving down your throat to get the MK1 port out day and date with the other versions of the game. So, and again, you know, as we've both said, having direct access to the next generation of hardware, to having as many resources behind them as possible to make the best ports of the newest games. I mean, they still may not come out day one on Nintendo platforms. However, this says to me specifically, Nintendo is serious about grabbing a lot of these third-party titles that they had previously essentially just had to concede to the other brands because of the current strength of their hardware.
Yeah, and I mean, I guarantee you that Nintendo's third-party partners have access to Switch 2 development kits at this point. Like, they must. To gear up for what we assume will be a 2025 launch, I imagine they already are sending out software development kits to their third-party partners. So it makes perfect sense if they're sending one to, say, a Bandai Namco, which is one of Nintendo's biggest third-party partners, and they're saying, hey, now we have Shiver, they can make Elden Ring for Switch 2, and we have these people now, you know, and like I completely anticipate that when we see the actual rollout of Switch 2, we're gonna see like in the same way that they showed like Skyrim for Switch 1 as being like, oh wow, like we can have this on Switch. You're gonna see Elden Ring and Baldur's Gate 3, you know, and like these big prolific third-party ports of games running on Switch 2 being facilitated by the people that know how to do that. You know, it's a smart acquisition. You know, I'm not usually in favor of acquisitions just in general, but if we're going to have them, I mean, yeah, this is smart. This makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Elden Ring on a Nintendo platform, I could see, as long as, you know, they make sure that the reputation isn't tarnished.
Nice. I see what you did there.
Thank you.
Well, that isn't actually the only acquisition-related news.
No, this week. It's not. For gamers of a certain age, this was a mind-blowing headline that came out of the video games industry. And there was a time when this would have been the biggest headline in entertainment. Now, that time was literally decades ago. However,
very little people care anymore.
Unfortunately, these companies have long since passed their prime. However, Atari specifically is coming back in a big way. And the headline in question, Atari actually acquired Intellivision, ending a 50-year-old console war that hasn't been going on since the 80s. But still, this kind of blew my 8-year-old mind when this happened. And again, Atari is doing a lot of work right now, more work than they've done in a very long time. They're working to put out brand new, reimagined versions of many of their franchises. They've been working with Digital Eclipse, obviously, on a ton of amazing returns, collections, and interactive museums that we featured heavily on the show here before. They've got stuff like Yars, the new, was it Yars Reimagined, Yars
Rising?
Yars Rising, yeah.
Yeah.
You got the new Yars game. You've got all these new reimagined versions of old Atari games that they've been developing, even stuff like Haunted House and Centipede and stuff like that. Atari has been very, very active recently. And now that they own Intellivision, and chiefly, importantly, it's 200 plus IP, this says to me that Atari has some big plans. Now, I know that Intellivision has been quite an embattled company, especially due to the disastrous Amico situation. And Atari actually did speak on that.
Yeah, I mean, apparently what's happening is they're acquiring all of this Intellivision IP. The Amico, they're going to rebrand to like release the Amico on. I'll believe that thing's real when I see it. I'm still not 100% convinced that's ever going to come out, but when it does, if and when it does, it's going to be under a full rebrand, I guess, is what's going to happen with that. But all the Intellivision stuff properly is now owned by Atari.
The Atarico. I don't know.
Yeah. I have no clue, man, but it's interesting. I mean, like, Atari is an interesting company because they have, just over the past, I don't know, 3 to 5 years, really like kind of woken up, and I think like sort of been like, well, like maybe what the Atari brand means is maybe it's just embracing our history rather than trying to reinvent the wheel. Like, we understand that we're a brand that means something to nostalgia and all this other stuff, so we'll make new entries in our kind of classic IP. Acquiring Intellivision IP makes a lot of sense for them, and I imagine they're just going to kind of keep this train rolling. It seems to be working for them, so.
I mean, they have that identity, and I think that's fine. I think the closest thing to a truly modern AAA game that we can expect from Atari is probably Yars Rising. I don't necessarily expect them to come out with a huge, big Unreal 5 open world game anytime in the next few years. I feel like they have really found their identity in the 2020s with these types of new, I don't even know what to call them, like not even really mobile style, but modernized versions of many of their games from the 70s and early 80s. So, and they've already released an Intellivision T-shirt to commemorate it, which I thought was really cute.
Yeah, so I mean, they've they sort of have found their niche and they're sticking to it, and more power to them, man. And it is just kind of nice. Like, I do like that Atari can find whatever small footing they can in the modern landscape. I do like I like seeing them. I like thinking about them. I like seeing their logo and stuff. It is nostalgic. It does have some weight to it, and I do like that they can kind of continue to operate. So.
Yeah, and their continued partnership with Digital Eclipse is something they need to hold on to.
Yeah, I mean, and now, there could be an Intellivision, collection from. Oh,
dude, I've already thought about it. Like, just could you imagine next year we get an Intellivision, a huge, Atari 50 style interactive museum Intellivision collection with the Atari brand that pops up before the main menu screen?
Yeah, I imagine you're going to see that.
I think we will too, and I don't know if my brain will ever be the same.
Well, we got another kind of a very low-key big piece of news. Nintendo has announced plans for an official store in San Francisco. This is only the second store, only the second ever official Nintendo US store. They have 3. There's one in, I think, Tokyo, Osaka, and Kyoto. In Japan, but Nintendo New York has been the only Nintendo store.
There are more Super Nintendo World theme parks than there are Nintendo stores in America.
Yeah, so this is really cool, and they're going to have kind of their East Coast and now their West Coast store in San Francisco. The press release here, it's very short and sweet. Just says Nintendo of America today announced plans to open an official store in San Francisco's iconic Union Square, providing a way for a wide range of visitors from near and far to experience the world of Nintendo, its products, and characters. The store, called Nintendo San Francisco, will open in 2025 as the second official location in the U.S., joining the store in New York City. Please stay tuned for more information as the new store opening approaches.
Yeah.
So, yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, having the Nintendo store in Times Square makes a ton of sense. Absolutely makes a ton of sense. That's one of the most visible shopping, areas on the planet. One of the most famous shopping areas on the planet. However, San Francisco, California. California is where Nintendo of America's headquarters is, right?
No, they're headquartered in Redmond, Washington.
Washington.
Yeah.
Regardless, San Francisco being on the West Coast is ridiculously close to Japan anyway. So, that's just not saying that, Mr. Furukawa is going to be making daily trips over to see the San Francisco store, but having an American location that physically close to Nintendo headquarters, I think, is something they were also considering.
Well, yeah, it makes a lot of sense to have them on both coasts, and it also San Francisco is one of the tech capitals of the world, let alone the country, and so it makes a lot of sense to have one in San Francisco. If they were going to do another city other than New York, that's probably the way to go. It makes even more sense than doing it in L.A. So pretty cool, man. And then, like, selfishly, Garrett, one of the folks from the carpool team, he lives in San Francisco, so now I got an in. If I need some merch, I'll be like, "Hey, Garrett, swing over to the store and pick that up for me."
Ooh, very nice.
Fully says, "I can't wait to visit Nintendo New York this year."
Nice.
As Fully travels to New York for Extra Life this year, so that'll be exciting. Cool, man. Well, we've got another little update here coming out of Devolver Digital, who has officially detailed their plans for Summer Game Fest. They are sort of hitching their horse to the Summer Game Fest wagon with Volvi's 15th birthday party. Devolver Direct June 7th at 5 p.m. Pacific, with this little kind of like teaser video, this kind of birthday party video where it shows like Dropsy cookies and stuff. Like,
so typically Devolver Digital's presentations are uniquely themed year to year. The last year's presentation really has no real bearing. They could reference it, and they do often, but in terms of actual theming, Devolver has been want to change things up year to year to year. However, it looks like they're actually sticking with this whole bizarre fictional turned real Devolver mascot, Volvi. It was the exact same theming device that they used last year for their June showcase, and I'm still interested to see it. Devolver still puts out a ton of, in terms of like indie publishers. It's hard for me to think of another indie publisher that consistently puts out games of note. They're constantly putting out new games, so whatever presentation Devolver is going to have, I'm going to be interested in seeing it. I feel like I've said this every year for the past half decade, but I do just hope that with this presentation, they are able to find a balance between actually showing games off and whatever bizarre comedy skit they're going to try to run this year.
Yeah, we'll see. I expect updates on things like the Plucky Squire.
Yep.
I expect all kinds of stuff like coming into this, and I'm fine with. I've been kind of over the whole like shtick with Devolver's presentations for a while, even though I love them. I love them, and they make amazing games, and they're like you said. I think pretty inarguably the most consistent and solid indie publishing house, but. We'll see. The
shtick has run its course a little bit in terms of their.
Yeah. It kind of has. I'm a little over it.
Yeah. Now, the first several times they did it, there was a breath of fresh air within the industry because nobody was doing presentations like Devolver for a long time. But it just seems like they've leaned a little bit too hard into that over the past few years, and Volvi was another one of those that just seemed like it really overstayed its welcome and didn't have a lot of notable like actual announcements or trailers. So it doesn't really fill me with a lot of confidence that they're going back to the Volvi well again. However, just because they're using the same theming device doesn't necessarily mean we're going to get the same results. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, because like what winds up happening is we get like a 45-minute presentation with like 4 actual announcements, you know, and so yeah, you know, it is what it is. We'll see what happens, but none, you know, regardless, they have officially said like, hey, it's June 7th, it's 5 p.m. Pacific, it's part of Summer Game Fest, so look forward to that. This is something that I just wanted to flag real quick. We don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but I just want to talk about Rian Johnson for a second here on the show.
Okay, so Rian Johnson, for those who don't know, very famously the director of the Knives Out franchise and infamously the director of The Last Jedi. However, because of his work with Daniel Craig and a certain whodunit franchise, Rian Johnson has once again kind of come back into the good graces of moviegoers all over the world. And his next project, whatever it might be, is something that could generate a lot of interest in people, Seth.
Here's the deal, Rian Johnson, you can't just do this. You can't just do this. I'm a huge Rian Johnson fan. He's one of my favorite directors. I love The Last Jedi. I love the Knives Out franchise.
Yeah.
I love him. And I love Looper. Like I'm a huge fan of him. And when he tweets out this picture of the screenshot of the Pokemon Go like egg hatching screen where it just says, oh, you know, I'm like,
with no context, with no context,
it's just the image. And immediately, you know, it got like 1 million, you know, impressions on Twitter. Everybody starts freaking out. Like, what does this mean? Like, is Rian, you know, and then all of a sudden, like your head starts connecting these dots. Like, wait a minute, like what if the Knives Out guy is making Detective Pikachu 2? You know, you're going to all these crazy places. And like if Rian Johnson's involved with the Pokemon project, that would be incredible, you know? And I feel like he knew that he was seeing, I think, the fire get away from it a little bit. And he was like, oh, well, you know, I guess I might as well just go ahead and come out and let people stop speculating. It's just, hey, we're making a new Knives Out, which is great. I love Knives Out. But like, you know, I'm just like, you can't just do this. You can't just, you have to understand like what you're going to make people think, you know? So, but yeah, it was just the announcement of Knives Out 3 essentially is what he was alluding to. And the sort of, was just like, oh, hey, like I'm cooking something. I've got an egg and it's about to hatch basically. So
the picture that you used to quote retweet that is something that was burned into my mind forever. It looks like a practical effect used for.
It's a real guy. That's a real guy. That his name's like Get Rich Nick or something like that. That's a real dude. Yeah, he's like one of those Bitcoin bros, and he is an interesting looking human being.
He looks like Michael Ironsides is about to blow his head up in scanners.
Yeah, he is an interesting looking human being, man. But that was basically the feeling, like, oh, what? Like, what is this? You know, that was basically what the feeling was for about 15 minutes until Rian Johnson was like, actually, no. It's just, and yeah, as Fulia points out in the chat, hey, I'm all for more Knives Out films. I love them. Me too. Yeah. I mean, I love Knives Out. I love them. So, I mean, hey, he could do that for the rest of his career, as far as I'm concerned, and I'd be happy. But the inkling of Rian Johnson Pokemon sent me into a spiral for a few minutes. So, yeah, had to just call him out for that.
I mean, just for a second, just imagine a timeline where we get Ryan Reynolds' Pikachu teaming up with Benoit Blanc.
Well, here's what's funny is like he's created this thing where like people would be into that. People would say, yeah, sure. Like, why not? He could do literally whatever he wants with Knives Out and people would be about it. There was a thing going around where people were like genuinely calling, there's like petitions for him to do a Muppets crossover with Knives Out, like a little like Muppets movie crossover with Knives Out. And Ryan Johnson was like, "Yeah, I'd be into that." Like the world is his oyster. You could do this, great heady sort of like well thought out political commentary like Glass Onion, or hey, sure, crossover with Detective Pikachu. We're here for it either way, Ryan Johnson.
Spiritual sequel to the Happy Time Murders.
Yeah, it's he's in an interesting place. Either way, yeah, sent the internet into a spiral for about 15 minutes. So, hats off to Ryan Johnson. Cool, man. Well, we have another. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, like, going back into news that actually turned out to be about
Right.
video games.
Right. This is a pretty exciting release date announcement for a game that we're excited about. The sequel to Grapple Dogs, Cosmic Canine.
Yes, sir.
Got a release date here. It's coming. Is it August 15th? I think.
August 15th. Yep.
Yeah.
Coming August 15th to Nintendo Switch. Now, we had the distinct honor of having Joseph Gribben on the show before to talk Grapple Dog, and I haven't had the opportunity to play the first game yet, Seth. I know you are a massive fan of the first game.
I really loved it.
Yeah, even just talking with Joseph and even just talking with you, this is a game that, even though I don't have personal experience with the first one, you get to pet Pablo and this other. How do you not love everything that you're seeing right now?
Yeah, this new character I think is Luna, and it's basically like Pablo's Shadow of the Hedgehog is basically what Luna is. And yeah, it's great. A great, really well done and well made animated trailer. Kind of dimension hopping, trailer. And this is gonna be awesome, man. I like the first Grapple Dog. If y'all have not played it, is well worth your time. And this also confirms the return of Jazz Mickle there at the end for the soundtrack, and that makes me happy too. So yeah, this is great news. We knew that this has been in development for a little while. But look, here it is, less than 3 months out at this point, and it is coming. We didn't know it was coming to Switch. We probably could safely assume it was because the first game was, but now we know it is also coming to Switch. So, huge deal.
Yeah, when it comes to announcements about this game, Joseph Gribben was kind of keeping his cards close to his vest. He didn't even want, for the longest time when he was talking about his next project, he didn't even want to insinuate that it was a sequel to Grapple Dogs. But now here we have finally a really great look at the game coming out in just a couple months. I don't know what it is about releases that feel like your themed releases coming out around my birthday. It just seems like that happens every year, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. August is just a pretty good time to release stuff.
Yeah.
Because you're coming in right before the fall, right before the craziness, especially for indie games. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, Cosmic Canines, that should absolutely be on your radar. Coming August 15th to the Nintendo Switch eShop. Yeah, should be. If the rest of 2024 so far is any indication with the quality of indie releases, yeah, it should be great.
Yep, can't wait. We do have a really quick little PSA in relation to Super Mario Run. That game's still getting updates. There's actually a special event ongoing right now to coincide with Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. Or sorry, I should say this is just. I'm so sick of Nintendo's language with this stuff in the Switch era, particularly in the past year or so. Now they say an event for the Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door game is going on now. They've been saying that the Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door game for the Nintendo Switch system is just, let's leave no confusion, no room for that. That's just a little nitpick for me, but regardless, there is an ongoing event now. It's running until June 27th at 7 a.m. UTC. You can unlock statues of Paper Mario, Goombella, and Koops that you can put in your kingdom by completing some Paper Mario missions in Super Mario Run. So, yeah, nice. There you go.
I know a new chapter or season of Fortnite also just started within the past day or something.
Yeah, but if we start covering Fortnite chapters here, we'll be talking about Fortnite every week. But yes, that's also a thing.
Was there anything else that we had to get into before we shout out this week's myriad of notable releases?
A lot of notable releases.
So first things first, obviously, yes, the big one, Super Paper Awesome Goombella in Rocheport, the 1,000-year, yes, please, we'll take 10, is finally out on Nintendo Switch. After a 20-year hiatus, people have been clamoring for the return of this iconic GameCube RPG, and now we have it in our hands, and you and I have both been putting quite a bit of time into it. As a matter of fact, Seth, you have a couple streams up on the YouTube channel right now, one of which we are featuring in the video. So if you're watching here on the video, that's why you're seeing Seth twice on the screen.
That's right. I streamed it a little bit yesterday when it came out. So streamed it for a few hours and got a good ways, basically almost through to the end of chapter 1. Did the prologue and got almost to the end of chapter 1. And it's great. It's great to have this game back on Nintendo Switch. Fuya says it's her first time playing Paper Mario, and she's enjoying it so far. So very glad to hear that. We do have a game hub, a special game hub in our Discord community. So if y'all are playing Paper Mario, if you're playing it for the first time, if you're a returning veteran, jump on into the Discord. There's a lot of chatter going on in there about Paper Mario: The 1,000-Year Door, and it's a real joy. I mean, that's the point of these is for people who have never played it before to experience it for the first time and have it readily available and not have to pay like $120 for it on the aftermarket.
True story.
And for returning veterans to to come back in and get a little bit of nostalgia. It has been a nostalgic experience. So
yeah, absolutely. But I mean, you guys, if you're listening to the show, you're more than likely acutely aware that game was releasing this week. You've probably already known whether or not you're going to buy it for some time. However, what if we told you that wasn't the only game that released this week?
That's right. There's plenty of other stuff. What if we told you it's not the only game that released this week with a paper theming?
That's true. So huge thank you to the studio for giving us early access, super early access to Paper Trail. Is this my first look?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So right now, if you're watching the video, you're actually seeing footage of my first look of Paper Trail, a new paper folding puzzle game released on the Nintendo Switch this past week. And there's a lot of really cool puzzle games that have come out recently that we think you guys should check out. But if you're a fan of indie games, if you're a fan of puzzle games, please do not sleep on Paper Trail. This is such an interesting and beautiful and unique title. I love how all of these incredibly unique ideas have been permeating indie games when it comes to the puzzle genre. Stuff like Patrick's Parabox and this and Lorelei from last week. And like, there's so many really interesting and cool ideas out there. And right now in the video, you're just seeing kind of a prologue, a narrated story section of the game. However, when you're actually exploring the overworld, even the overworld is treated like completely foldable paper, and that is where a lot of the puzzle solving comes in. So, here we go. You can see this traversable area that the main character, Paige, is able to walk across. Again, shrewd naming conventions. But yeah, it was already kind of blowing my mind, even within the first half hour of this game coming out. The final puzzle of the first look absolutely blew my mind, and the interesting and unique ways that they are using this idea of a foldable environments to just astounding game design is incredible. I don't have the words really.
Yeah, it's a cool game. Continuing the insane month of huge and important indie releases. So
true story.
Very cool. Yeah, Eric's video is up on the channel right now if you want to see it in motion. Yeah. Speaking of videos that you've put up, Eric, Wizardry is another release from this week.
Yeah. So yes, Wizardry. We were just talking about digital clips in reference to Atari a few minutes ago, and because Digital Clips has been doing a lot of incredible work rejuvenating games that are several decades old, and Wizardry is just the latest example of that. If you're not familiar with the game, that's perfectly fine. That just means you probably weren't born in the last 40 years. Wizardry itself came out back in 1981 on the Apple II, but it's been fully remade by Digital Eclipse for the modern era. And they are very true to the original game design. Obviously, they've added some really good quality of life improvements and some very, very up-needed facelift to the game, but they have gone out of their way to keep the difficulty and the challenge of and the old school feel of this game intact, very much to the game's credit. People have even asked about how to turn off certain more challenging aspects. I actually saw a Digital Eclipse tweet today. It was like, you turn them off by overcoming them. Rise to the challenge, everyone.
Nice.
So,
nice.
But yeah, really, really cool, classic like Dungeons and Dragons style RPG. A lot of the maneuvers and a lot of the kind of random chance are even designated. They're even, presented in like D&D, like D20 style rolling a die type thing. Now, I will say there is a lot to absorb when you're playing this game. And at the end of my first look here, I made a mistake that completely threw me off. So,
honest mistake.
Yeah, but the teaching point there is this is a game you do have to pay attention to. This is not a game that concerns itself with hand holding. So this is, if this is your first RPG, maybe try Paper Mario. However, if you are a fan of old school RPGs, and you're, especially a gamer of a certain age, this comes highly recommended from me.
Yeah, check out Eric's video again on the channel now, and thanks to Digital Eclipse for providing us the copy so that we could show it to y'all.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, I've put up a few videos on the channel this week as well. Yeah, me? No. And another massive game that came out this week, Haunty.
Yeah.
This game is so cool.
God,
I'm so excited. Cool. It's fantastic. It's the visuals of it are amazing. It is like a twin stick shooter take on Super Mario Odyssey, which is like the craziest one sentence pitch ever, but I'm gonna see if I can find a little point in the video to illustrate what I'm talking about. You run around these kind of like, top-down isometric environments, but you literally, it's a twin stick shooter, so with the right stick, you can kind of send out, these shots that you can use when shooting things to like possess items and characters and enemies, just like in Mario Odyssey. And it creates these really cool little moments. I'm trying to find like an example of what I'm talking about, where you use it for puzzle solving, and you use it to collect these stars, and you use the stars to like gain constellations. This is an example of like a little like challenge. If you're watching the video, we're seeing these like ghosts running around, and this is such a Mario Odyssey moment where like you see these people and you're like, what's going on? I'm possessing this tree over here. Do I got to do something with that? Turns out you have to like join in on the race. I'm experimenting here, but you join in on the race and chase these ghost children around and win the race to get the star. Just like these little tiny like Mario Odyssey-esque moments, It's cool. It is a really neat game. I was so charmed by it. I was just so taken with it, and I'm looking forward to playing more. So.
Yeah, almost looks like sand art or something like that. Almost like the world's most elaborate Etch-a-Sketch art, if that makes sense.
The visuals are amazing. It is so performant. Like it just runs so well on Switch, and on the OLED screen, it just looks beautiful. It is like one of the prettiest, best running games I think I've seen on the Nintendo Switch. It's awesome. Y'all should play Haunty. If you are an Xbox player and you have Game Pass, it is on Game Pass.
Nice.
This is me realizing what I have to do. Like, oh wait, I need to actually join in on this race. And yeah, it's great, man. Play Haunty. It's awesome.
Nice. It turns out that's not even the end of it. That's not even the end of our first look videos for awesome indies that have come out this week. Because even just earlier today, you released a couple more.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to show y'all Duck Detective, the Secret Salami, is the Star Athena, a little like scratch board for Haunty's visuals. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Duck Detective: The Secret Salami. So we got this one as well.
This
Big
isn't
thanks
Paper
to,
Mario with a duck skin, by the way.
yeah, it does have that kind of paper aesthetic. Like the characters are like 2D cutouts, and it's great because like he even kind of waddles around. Like when he moves, he's just sort of like rocking back and forth. But you play as this grizzled, hard-boiled duck detective who, a lot of detectives, they like swill whiskey and stuff. Not him. He eats loaves of bread. That's his vice. Is loaves of cheap white bread,
like
and
fermented milk. Ugh.
He's recently divorced.
Recently
and,
deceased.
Not deceased. He's recently divorced.
That was the last game. That was
Right.
Haunty.
Right. He's recently divorced, and he's like down on his luck. He's broke, and he's been called to solve who stole the other person's lunch in this office. It's a short game. It's apparently, like 2 to 3 hours. So my first look kind of thing, I didn't want to show too much of it, because it is apparently a pretty short and sweet kind of experience. But it's great. It's super fun, funny, fully voice acted. The performances are really fun, and yeah, it's awesome. Everybody should play it.
This is the Detective Pikachu crossover we need.
Yeah, Duck Detective with Detective Pikachu. I hope this is the start of like a new little series. Like just release one of these every like year and a half, and just make these kind of cute little 2-hour Duck Detective games. That would be great. So yeah, it's awesome. I can't wait to play through the rest of it.
Yeah, I love the key art though for that weird 2D alligator with a suit and tie on.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, it's great. In addition to that, also put up a video for Pine Hearts, which we also got. So thank you to the publisher for sending that along to us. This game is just so wholesome. Like it is just the most heartwarming holes. You play as this little character who's going to this like nature reserve. Kind of, you got a short hike vibes a little bit with it. And you want to climb this mountain. That's the goal. There's a mountain that you want to climb, because you once climbed it like with your father when you were a child. That's kind of there's like a little bit of subtext. You're kind of uncovering your memories and stuff as you play the game. But before you can even get to the mountain, you have to get the tools to get to the mountain. So you do that by kind of helping these people in the Pine Hearts, the titular Pine Hearts camping, campground with their problems and stuff. And it's just a cute, wholesome little game. I will say on Switch, it's a little framey. It can be a little framey. The loads can be a little bit long. It's nothing like deal breaking or anything like that. But it's just like a cute, very fun, very charming, very wholesome, very heartwarming, cozy experience. I think a lot of people, if you're into stuff like this, are gonna get a kick out of it.
Yeah, kind of looks like a short hike meets. You remember Time on Frog Island?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. It does have a little bit of those vibes, and like it's not anything like too intensive. It's just kind of laid back, cozy, and fun. I like the visual style of it. I think there's room for some optimization for sure, but still, it's just a fun, cute, heartwarming little thing.
Characters almost look like little Playmobil figures or something.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool, man. I like it. So I'm looking forward to playing more of that. And those. That's not even it. There's even more to get into.
That's just it for the stuff that we have videos for. But I am interested in checking out this Scarlet Tower. What can you tell me about that, Seth?
So this is actually, you've seen this before because this is one of the games that they showed off for the Premium Edition Direct, the last one.
Yes.
Yeah, this is that kind of Vampire Survivors, but even more intense action RPG. That Premium Edition is doing a physical for. That came out this week. And it's similarly priced to Vampire Survivors. I think it's like $4 or $5 or something like that. But Premium Edition is also doing the physical as well. So wanted to shout that out.
Won't be $5.
No, yeah. But it looks great. It looks really cool. In terms of the we've seen plenty of Vampire Survivors likes, and
Of
this
course.
is one of the more intriguing ones to me, just because of like how much action is going on. Like there's just
Yeah.
so much happening.
Yeah. The hit sparks and the like the visual flair and the lighting alone, I think look really good. Now, one of the big things, one of the reasons for Vampire Survivors visual simplicity is so that when things get absolutely nuts, the game doesn't have a lot of intensive assets that it needs to render at one time. So that would be my only concern with this game, Scarlet Tower, is if it does get as nuts as something like a Vampire Survivors, if it does start to chug at the more ridiculous moments of the game. I don't know, but I mean, at $4 or $5, I may have to download that this week and try it out and report back next week.
Yeah, it's a pretty low asking price. Star Athena says this
Yeah.
looks not epilepsy friendly. You're probably right. Frankly, neither is Vampire Survivors.
No,
So
it's not.
yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah,
So we had
there's a photosensitivity warning that
yeah.
that you manually have to go away from at the beginning of Vampire Survivors.
Yep. So we had that. Another one, Bread and Fred, came out this week, and this is like a sort of, co-op sort of mountain climbing thing where you play as these two cute penguins.
So cute.
But very like deceptively difficult. It's the kind of thing where you're gonna play it with somebody and like not be friends by the end of it. It looks very sort of challenging and difficult
Yeah.
to wrap your. It's gonna require a lot. You can play it solo. You actually can play it solo, I guess. But it's it looks difficult. So yeah.
It does look adorable though, and I almost hate it when games come out that have this deceptively cute veneer, and you're like, oh, this is going to be a fun, not at all infuriating romp, and then all of a sudden you get in and it's like Celeste or something. Because
This is the single player right here. You have to throw a rock attached to the end of the rope. That right there, that's the single player.
oh my god,
Yeah.
I kind of love that though. I kind of love that, but. Yeah, but if you have a relationship with somebody that you intentionally want to sabotage, this is probably the perfect game to do that with.
Yeah. Felia says, I have this in my Steam library that I got as a gift. I need a friend to play this with. So yeah, find a friend or a loved one to argue with over some Bread and Fred. Now available on the Nintendo Switch. So that one's been anticipated for a while. We also got some pretty big DLC offerings this week. First of all, the Suika game multiplayer update finally dropped.
Yes, sir.
This past week. It is paid. It is a paid multiplayer DLC. But if you're somebody who's still like way into Suika game and you want to play it in multiplayer, you can finally do that. So,
I mean, the moment for Suika game has well and truly passed. But I know there are still some people out there who are playing the game, and I mean, depending on how interesting, like how many quirks, because it is very clear you're not just playing the game across from somebody, you are having a tangible effect on that person's game as you're playing. So maybe that's just the jolt that this game needs to kind of get back into the public mindset.
yeah, I just think it's cool they're doing it at all. I
Yeah.
just they could have done nothing, and they've chose to reinvest a little bit of the success that they've had with Suika game back into the game.
Yeah.
So I think it's neat. It's not something that I'm kind of over Suika game, but still, pretty cool. If you're still playing Suika game, that will hopefully give you a reason to kind of go back to it. And
Seth,
and then there's this.
we covered Godzilla DLC just a couple weeks ago. What are we talking about this for? This isn't new, right? This isn't another piece of Godzilla DLC for an indie game releasing in May 2024, is it?
Yeah, well, be careful calling Dave the Diver an indie game, but yeah,
Oh
it's
god, yeah.
it's Godzilla that we knew this. This was announced a while ago.
Yeah.
But the Godzilla DLC for Dave the Diver is out now. Main reason I wanted to flag this, I still have no idea what it is or how it works.
Yeah.
I have no clue what's actually going on here. But the main reason I wanted to flag it is because it's actually a limited time DLC.
Yes.
You have to get this before November, and they're going to delist it after that point. I'm assuming just because of licensing.
Yeah, licensing and rights and contracts and all that fun stuff. But I don't know, man. This is so weird. Specifically, this is like the nuclear version of Godzilla that appeared in the 1995 Godzilla versus Destoroyah, but there's also Abira, Horror of the Deep, who's in this. So I've seen the trailer so many times. I still have no clue what this DLC is going to actually be like in motion. So if anybody knows, like, let us know how this DLC actually affects the game in any tangible way.
Like it looks cool. I do like there's this character who kind of has some dialogue introducing Ibira and everything. Yeah. And it actually looks like pretty cinematic, like the way that Ibira is kind of like crashing through here. Like this is really cool actually. I like the notion of, you know, being underwater with these creatures. But then Godzilla comes in, it's like okay, and then at the end of the trailer, it's Godzilla versus Ibira. I'm like so like am I playing as Godzilla in this moment? Like what's happening? Is this just a cutscene? You know, I want to know what's going on here. And Dave the Diver, from what I understand, I've not played the full version of the game, but that game apparently is way longer and way more in depth and like has multiple different genres in it. So like it wouldn't be out of the question for you to just like, hey, we're playing as Godzilla right now, you know. So
it's one of those things like it's just crazy enough to work. But regardless, that DLC is available now. That is free content for Dave the Diver, but again, it is limited time. So if Dave the Diver is an indie game, that you want to get into, do so before November.
Yeah. It says, get ready for an action-packed collaboration with Dave the Diver and Godzilla. This legendary monster stomps into the world of Dave the Diver for an exciting adventure, exclusive content including new missions, boss fights, and an enticing storyline await. I didn't know Dave the Diver had boss fights. Apparently Dave the Diver has boss fights, so there you go.
Very nice. But yet another game on the Nintendo Switch that you have new Godzilla-themed content for here in May 2024. Again, also play Gigabash. Hedorah and King Ghidorah are awesome. But I think that's it for finally. I think that's it for the notable releases. We would love to know what you guys are playing, even if it's just Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. Sound off. Let us know what you guys are up to. Reach out to us on Facebook, on Twitter at All In Podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications if you're watching us here on YouTube for the stream. Because in addition to all the content that we make, in addition to all the podcasts that we do, we make so many videos for this YouTube channel, many of which we featured in this very news roundup. So a ton of content going up on the YouTube channel all the time. And in addition to all of that stuff, the podcast, the videos, and everything else, we also find time to create exclusive content for those legendary patrons we shouted out at the top of the episode.
Yeah, patreon.com/allinpodcast. That's the place to be. 3 tiers of support over there. You can get a 7-day free trial to the Golden Banana tier. Check out the exclusive content for yourself and see what all the fuss is about. Join the ranks of those fine folks. We appreciate it. That's a great way to support the show. Pick up some merch, allin.media, new website and merch store, another great way to support the show. And yeah, just your likes, your comments, your subs here on YouTube, as well as your reviews and your 5-star ratings on podcast feeds. If you listen to us on your audio feed, that's a quick, easy, and free way to support the show. So thank you all for doing that.
Yeah, those reviews specifically, yeah, those are nice. You guys can do those. We'd appreciate those. Feel free, because they are free. So if you guys want to do one of those, we would very much appreciate it. We shout you out at the beginning of those episodes when you give them to us. So if you want to have yourself featured on an episode of All In, that's the best and fastest way to do it. You scratch our back, we scratch yours. But if you have already done so, if you have dropped words on whatever podcast service you happen to watch or listen to us on, if you have picked up a piece of our merch at allin.media, if you have become one of our legendary patrons, or if you even have just shared our content or retweeted or reposted or done whatever, even if you have just spread the word of All In, we would like to extend to each and every one of you, namaste.
Namaste. That's been the news roundup, folks. Thanks so much for coming through. It was good to see y'all in the chat. Fulia, Star Athena. Thanks for watching. Sparky was here earlier. I think
Fulia,
Sparky's,
I can confirm boss fights are in this game.
Yeah.
That's rad.
Yeah.
That's rad.
Sparky, I think, took off and went to the Green Moon. So,
hey, I don't
very
blame
cool,
him.
man. I appreciate y'all for coming through and hanging out with us tonight. A lot of fun news stories and stuff. We of course do have a brand new episode of All In, a Nintendo podcast hitting your feeds tomorrow, as per usual. It's a big episode. We're doing an indie showcase on Transistor, one of my all-time favorites, and that's in celebration of the game's 10th anniversary, which we just passed. And we're doing the top 5 Paper Mario inspired indie games that have the Paper Mario vibes to celebrate the release of the Thousand Year Door. And we're doing our June Direct predictions because we do know that Nintendo Direct is coming in June. So Eric and I are providing some predictions on the show tomorrow, but we're doing it with a fun little twist that I think y'all will get a kick out of. That is on tomorrow's episode of All In, hitting your podcast feed. So be excited for that. Until next weekend, guys, have a great, restful, and safe Memorial Day weekend. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
I'm going to go see Furiosa. Bye.